Happy birthday, Joanna. Sign these before the cake, so we can stop pretending this marriage still matters. Gregory said it in front of his whole family inside the Toronto mansion she helped build, while Lana stood beside him with one hand on her pregnant belly. But 10 minutes later, Gregory went pale when Joanna calmly picked up her phone and made the one call his family never expected. Before the story gets messy, let me ask you something first. If someone humiliated you in public on your birthday, would you cry right there? Or would you stay quiet and let them expose themselves? Write your answer in the comments, because I really want to know how you would handle a moment like this. And as always, before we dive into a story with an ending that's going to feel really satisfying for you, let's do a quick roll call. Type present and the city you're watching from in the comments. For everyone who has liked and subscribed, I pray that God makes your problems easier, widens your provision, and keeps your body healthy. Thank you, my friends. Now listen carefully to my story. My name is Joanna, and for almost 8 years, I was the woman everyone in Gregory's family called lucky. Lucky to marry him. Lucky to live in that mansion in Toronto. Lucky to have my name next to his in charity photos, investor dinners, and glossy real estate magazines. Lucky to sit at a long marble dining table in a house with heated floors, tall windows, a wine cellar, and a driveway wide enough for 3 SUVs. That was the story they told everyone. What they never said was that when I married Gregory, his family's real estate company was barely breathing. They had properties, yes. A few old rental buildings in Scarborough, one half-empty commercial plaza in Mississauga, and a tired office space near North York that needed more repairs than tenants. On paper, they looked wealthy. In reality, they were always one bad month away from a lender calling, one late tax filing away from a problem with the CRA, and one angry investor away from total embarrassment. I did not come from their world. My parents were ordinary, hardworking people. My dad used to say, "Joanna, never be impressed by big houses. Be impressed by the people who can sleep peacefully inside them." Back then, I thought that was just one of those simple parent sayings you smile at and forget. Years later, standing inside a mansion where everyone looked rich but lied like breathing, I understood exactly what he meant. Before Gregory, I worked in property administration. Nothing fancy. I handled leases, tenant complaints, HST records, renewals, maintenance schedules, and all the boring paperwork nobody claps for. But I was good at it. Really good. I understood numbers. I remembered details. I could look at a lease and spot a missing clause in seconds. I could talk to an angry tenant without making them angrier. I knew which contractors padded invoices, which investors wanted warm compliments before hard numbers, and which city forms had to be submitted before someone got slapped with a penalty. Gregory loved that about me in the beginning. At least, I thought he did. He used to call me his secret weapon. He would sit beside me in his old downtown office, sleeves rolled up, hair messy, eyes tired, saying, "Joanna, I swear if I didn't have you, this company would collapse." I believed him, so I helped. At first, I helped after work. Then I helped on weekends. Then I helped during lunch breaks. Before long, I was doing more for his family company than their actual paid staff. When Gregory's father, Harvey, missed a deadline on a refinancing package, I rebuilt the entire file overnight. When his mother, Christina, lost track of lease deposits, I created a system for every tenant account. When Gregory's younger brother, Hayden, promised investors reports he didn't know how to prepare, I built them with charts, numbers, and projections that made the company look stable. And slowly, it did become stable. Then profitable. Then respected. The company changed its name to Harbor Crown Properties, and people in Toronto real estate circles started paying attention. We renovated the Scarborough buildings, filled the Mississauga Plaza, bought 2 small apartment buildings near Hamilton, and later, a mixed-use property close to the Danforth. Every time the company grew, Gregory stood in front of people and smiled. Every time something went wrong, everyone called me. "Joanna, the lease file is missing." "Joanna, the investor wants updated numbers." "Joanna, do we owe HST this quarter?" "Joanna, the bank needs clarification." But when the photos were taken, I was pushed to the side. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. I was his wife. We were a team. I didn't need applause. That was my first mistake. Because when people get used to you working in silence, they start believing silence is where you belong. The mansion came after the third big deal. It was in one of those quiet Toronto neighborhoods where the lawns looked trimmed by rulers, and the houses looked like they had never heard people arguing inside them. Gregory called it the family home, but everyone knew I was the one who negotiated the purchase. The seller wanted a clean closing. The bank wanted stronger guarantees. Harvey wanted to brag. Christina wanted a grand staircase. Hayden wanted a basement bar. Gregory wanted the address. I was the one who made the numbers work. A holding company bought it. I signed more documents than anyone else because by then, I had quietly become the most reliable person in the entire structure. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one every lender trusted. Harvey once slapped Gregory on the back in front of me and said, "My son built an empire." I was holding a folder full of closing papers when he said it. Gregory smiled like it was true. I remember standing there in the foyer, looking up at the chandelier Christina had insisted on buying from a boutique shop in Yorkville, and feeling this tiny pinch in my chest. Not pain exactly, more like warning. But I ignored it, because when you love someone, you can become very talented at explaining away small insults. Christina was the first one who started calling me lucky. At a Sunday dinner, she looked around the table and said, "Some women marry into comfort and forget where they came from." The room got quiet for half a second. Then Hayden laughed. Gregory didn't. He didn't defend me either. I smiled politely and kept cutting my salmon, even though my appetite disappeared. Later that night, when I told Gregory it hurt me, he sighed like I was asking him to carry a piano upstairs. "My mom is old-fashioned," he said. "Don't make everything dramatic." "I'm not making it dramatic," I said. Quietly. "She made it sound like I married you for money." Gregory rubbed his forehead. "Joanna,
Come on.
you live in a mansion. You drive a nice car. Most women would ignore one comment and be grateful." That word, grateful, it started showing up more and more after
That.
whenever I asked why Hayden got praised. For deals I handled, I should be grateful. Whenever Christina corrected me in front of guests, I should be grateful. Whenever Harvey introduced me as Gregory's wife and nothing else, I should be grateful. Grateful people don't complain. Grateful people don't ask for credit. Grateful people stay in their assigned corner and smile for photos.
For years, I swallowed it.
I told myself the company was ours, the house was ours, the future was ours. And maybe if the disrespect had stayed small, I would have kept swallowing it. But people like Gregory's family never stop at small. They test you with little cuts first. If you don't bleed loudly, they go deeper. The first time I really felt humiliated in public was at an investor dinner at the mansion. It was February, brutally cold outside, the kind of Toronto night where the windows fog up and everyone throws their coats over chairs because the house is too warm. We had about 20 guests over, including Hector, one of our biggest private investors. Hector was sharp, quiet, not easily impressed. He had money in 2 of our redevelopment projects, and he trusted the numbers because I prepared them. That night, I had spent hours making sure everything was perfect. I reviewed cash flow projections, printed updated reports, checked the catering, confirmed parking, and even coached Gregory on how to answer questions about vacancy risk. During dinner, Hector asked a very specific question about operating expenses on the Hamilton buildings. Gregory froze. It was quick, but I saw it. His fork paused. His jaw tightened. His eyes shifted toward me. So I stepped in gently. "The increase looks bigger than it actually is because last year's snow removal invoices were delayed and posted late," I said. "If you normalize the timing, the operating expense ratio is still within the range we projected." Hector nodded. "That makes sense." It should have ended there. But Christina set down her wine glass and gave a little laugh. "Oh, Joanna loves these little paperwork details," she said. "It keeps her busy while the real business people talk." The table went still. I felt heat rise up my neck. Some guests smiled awkwardly because they didn't know what else to do. Hayden snorted like it was funny. Harvey leaned back, amused. Gregory looked at his plate. Hector did not laugh. He looked at me, then at Christina, then back at his report. I wanted Gregory to say something. Anything. Even a mild, "Mom, Joanna handles a lot more than paperwork." But he stayed quiet. So, I stayed quiet too. After dinner, while the guests moved into the living room for coffee, I went into the kitchen and stood by the sink. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to grip the counter. Gregory came in 2 minutes later. Not to apologize.
To warn me.
"Don't look upset," he whispered. "People will notice." I stared at him. "Your mother embarrassed me in front of investors." She was joking. No, she wasn't. He lowered his voice. "Joanna, I need you to not start a scene tonight." "I'm not starting a scene. I'm telling you your mother disrespected me." He looked toward the hallway like someone might hear, then said, "This is exactly what I mean. You take everything personally." I remember blinking at him, feeling something inside me go very still. Because that was the beginning of a pattern I later recognized clearly.
First, they insulted me.
Then, if I reacted, I was dramatic. If I stayed quiet, they said I agreed. If I asked for respect, I was ungrateful. If I cried alone, I was unstable. And if I succeeded, somehow the credit still belonged to Gregory. That night, I went upstairs before everyone left and sat on the edge of our bed in my dress, staring at my reflection in the dark window. The mansion was glowing. Guests were laughing downstairs. The company was doing better than it ever had. And I felt like a stranger in the life I helped build.
Let me pause here and ask you something.
When a spouse lets their family humiliate you in public, do you think the bigger betrayal is the insult itself or the silence that follows it? Because for me, Gregory's silence hurt more than Christina's words. Her cruelty was obvious. His betrayal was quiet, and that made it harder to explain. After that dinner, things changed in small ways first. Gregory started taking calls in other rooms. He used to leave his phone anywhere. On the kitchen island, on the sofa, beside the bathroom sink. Suddenly, it was always face down or in his pocket. He said he was busy. He said I was imagining things. He said the company was stressful, and I needed to stop making his life harder. Then came the missing expenses. At first, they were small enough to explain. A charge at a high-end restaurant downtown. A hotel parking fee. Designer store purchases Christina claimed were client gifts. A luxury car service that Hayden said he used for investor meetings. But I had been handling company books for too long to believe sloppy explanations. Numbers have a smell. That sounds strange, but if you've worked with accounts long enough, you know what I mean. A real business expense fits into a pattern. A fake one sits there like a stain. I started noticing recurring payments linked to a condo corporation near Yorkville. At first, I thought maybe we had acquired a unit I forgot about, which was impossible because I tracked every property file. So I checked again. The payments were not coded properly. They had been hidden under executive housing consultation, which made no sense. Then I saw payments to a luxury car lease. Then furniture. Then boutique medical appointments. Then grocery delivery to an address that was not ours, not any of our rentals, and not connected to any office. My stomach tightened. I printed the records and locked them in a file box under old lease renewals. I told myself there might be an explanation. Maybe Gregory was helping a client. Maybe Harvey had some side arrangement. Maybe it was nothing. That was the version of me still begging reality to be kinder. 2 weeks later, I saw Lana for the first time. Not officially. Not as Gregory's mistress. Just as a woman in a cream coat standing beside him outside a condo building near Bloor Street. I had gone downtown to meet with Hector's assistant about updated investor documents. On the way back, traffic was awful, so I cut through a side street. That was when I saw Gregory's SUV parked near the entrance. At first, I thought maybe it was a business meeting. Then Lana came out. She was beautiful in a polished, expensive way. Long hair, perfect makeup, the kind of soft beige outfit that looked simple until you realized every piece probably cost more than a month of groceries. Gregory smiled at her in a way I had not seen him smile at me in almost a year. Then he touched her lower back. Not by accident. Not like a colleague. Like a man touching someone he believed belonged to him. My hands went cold on the steering wheel. I sat in my car across the street, frozen, while Lana leaned up and kissed him. For a second, the whole city seemed to go silent. The streetcar noise, the horns, the footsteps, everything faded until all I could hear was my own heartbeat. I wanted to jump out. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call his name and watch his face collapse. But then Lana laughed and placed one hand gently on her stomach. It was quick, small, almost nothing, but I saw it. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I did not confront him, not because I was weak, because the woman I had been 5 years earlier might have run across the street crying. But the woman I had become knew that tears do not scare liars. Evidence does. So I drove away. I went home, walked into the mansion, changed out of my work clothes, and sat in my home office with the door locked. Then I opened every file. Company credit cards, bank transfers, vendor reimbursements, corporate expense reports, insurance documents, shareholder agreements, property ownership records. The deeper I looked, the worse it got. Gregory had been using company money to fund Lana's lifestyle for months. Not once. Not by mistake. Not in some emotional crisis. Systematically. Her condo fees. Her car. Her furniture. Her shopping. Even private wellness appointments that had nothing to do with Harbor Crown Properties. He had not just betrayed me as a husband. He had stolen from the company I built. And the worst part was, he had become careless because he truly believed I would never question him. That night, when he came home around 11, he smelled faintly like expensive perfume. I was sitting in bed with a book open in my lap. I had not read a word. Long day? I asked.
He loosened his tie.
Brutal. Meetings?
Yeah.
Investors. I watched him remove his watch and place it on the dresser. Anyone I know? He glanced at me through the mirror. What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing, I said.
His face changed right away. Defensive. Irritated. Almost too fast. Joanna, I don't have energy for whatever mood you're in. I asked one question. And I answered. You said investors. Yes. Which investors? He turned around. Are you auditing my day now? There it was. Attack instead of answer. I closed the book.
No.
I'm just asking. He laughed without humor. You know, my mother is right about one thing. You've become impossible to live with. I felt that one land. But I did not cry. I looked at him and said, maybe I've become harder to lie to. His eyes narrowed. For a second I thought he knew. Then he scoffed, grabbed his phone, and walked into the bathroom. I sat there in the quiet bedroom, listening to the shower turn on, and I knew my marriage had already ended. The only question was whether I would let them bury me with it. The next morning, I called Juliet. Juliet was not just a lawyer. She was the kind of lawyer who made people sit straighter when she entered a room. Calm voice, sharp eyes, no wasted words. She had handled some of our corporate documents before, but she was also someone I trusted because she had once pulled me aside after a meeting and said, Joanna, make sure you keep copies of everything you sign. At the time, I thought she was being careful. Now I understood she had seen something I was too hopeful to see. We met at a quiet cafe near King Street, far from Gregory's usual circles. I brought a folder. Juliet opened it, read 3 pages, and stopped smiling. How long has this been happening? She asked. I'm still checking, I said. But at least 6 months. Does Gregory know you know?
No.
Good, she said. That one word made my heart pound. She went through the record slowly. Condo payments, car lease, personal purchases, questionable reimbursements. I watched her expression become colder with every page. Then she asked, do you still have access to the full accounting system? Yes. Do not change anything. Do not alert him. Do not accuse him without backup. I want a forensic accountant to review this properly. I already thought of that, I said. Kelsey. Juliet nodded. Good choice. Kelsey was quiet, almost soft-spoken, but numbers obeyed her. She could look through 3 years of transactions and find one suspicious transfer hiding under office supplies. She had worked with us once during a lender review, and Harvey hated her because she asked questions he couldn't charm his way out of. That was how I knew she was perfect. When I called Kelsey, she listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Joanna, I need read-only access, backup exports, bank statements, credit card statements, and any board approvals connected to these expenses. Can you do it quietly?" "Yes," she said. "But I need to warn you. If this is what it looks like, it's not just an affair. It's misappropriation." I already knew that, but hearing the word out loud made my stomach twist. Misappropriation. Such a clean word for something so dirty. For the next several weeks, I lived two lives. In one life, I was still Gregory's wife. I attended family dinners. I smiled at Christina's comments. I reviewed files when Harvey demanded them. I answered Hayden's panic texts when he forgot basic information before meetings. In the other life, I was building a wall of evidence, brick by brick. Every receipt, every transfer, every coded expense, every email where Gregory approved something he later claimed not to remember. Every text message where Hayden asked me to clean up reports before investor review. Every board note showing I had authority they loved using when it benefited them, but pretended did not exist when credit was given. Juliet kept reminding me, "Do not move emotionally. Move strategically." That became my sentence. Every time Christina insulted me, I heard Juliet's voice. "Do not move emotionally." Every time Gregory lied, I heard it again. "Move strategically." Then came the pregnancy. I did not find out from Gregory. Of course not. I found out through a pharmacy charge hidden in the company card statement and a private clinic invoice accidentally emailed to the wrong admin folder. Lana was pregnant. Gregory had paid for prenatal appointments using a corporate account. When I saw the document, I sat alone in my office for almost 20 minutes. I did not sob. I did not scream. I simply stared at the screen until the words blurred. Pregnancy consultation. Patient name, Lana. Billing contact, Gregory. I put one hand over my mouth because the sound that came out of me was not crying exactly. It was more like my body trying to reject the truth. I had wanted children. That was one of the cruelest parts. Gregory and I had talked about it in our first years of marriage. We had even picked names once while stuck in traffic on the Gardner Expressway. But every time I brought up trying seriously, he said the timing was bad. The company needed us. The market was unstable. Interest rates were stressful. His parents needed support. There was always a reason to delay my dream while I helped build his. And now another woman was carrying his child while he used company money to pay for her comfort. That night, Christina hosted dinner at the mansion. I almost didn't go downstairs. I wanted to stay in my room, curl under the blanket, and disappear. But then I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red. My face looked tired. But something behind my expression had changed. I washed my face, put on a simple navy dress, and walked down. Christina was arranging flowers in the dining room like she was queen of the house. Harvey was opening wine. Hayden was laughing at something on his phone. Gregory was already seated, looking relaxed in a way that made me feel sick. When I sat down, Christina looked me over. "You look exhausted, Joanna," she said. "You really should take better care of yourself. A wife has to make herself pleasant, especially when she doesn't have children to keep a man attached." The room froze. Gregory's fork paused. Hayden looked down, smiling. Harvey muttered, "Christina." But he didn't stop her. I felt the sentence slice through me slowly. Especially when she doesn't have children to keep a man attached. I looked at Gregory. He stared at his plate. That was the moment I stopped waiting for him to become decent. I smiled at Christina. It surprised everyone, including me. "You're right," I said softly. "A woman should take care of herself." Gregory glanced up. I continued cutting my food like my hands weren't trembling under the table. Inside, I was making a promise.
Not to him.
Not to his family. To myself. They were going to learn exactly what kind of woman they had underestimated. After dinner, Gregory followed me into the hallway.
"What was that?" he asked.
What was what? That smile. That weird calm thing. I looked at him. "Would you rather I cry?" His jaw tightened. I would rather you stop making everyone uncomfortable. Your mother insulted me. She's worried about us. No, I said. She enjoys hurting me. He stepped closer. You need to be careful, Joanna. For a second, I almost laughed. Careful.
Yes.
Because lately you've been acting strange. Suspicious.
Cold.
If you keep going like this, don't be surprised if people start thinking you're unstable. There it was again. The setup. I was not hurt anymore. I was taking notes.
People.
I asked. My family. Your family already thinks whatever you tell them to think. He gave me this sad, fake look.
See?
That's exactly what I mean. You hear yourself, right? I did hear myself. For the first time in years, I sounded awake. Over the next month, the gaslighting became more aggressive. Gregory started rewriting basic reality. If I asked why a company card was used for personal charges, he said I misunderstood the coding. If I mentioned a late-night phone call, he said it was an investor. If I asked why he suddenly needed more privacy, he said I was becoming controlling. Christina began inviting me to lunches where she smiled sweetly and insulted me between sips of tea. You know, Joanna, some women are built for family life, and some are built for office work. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Then she would pat my hand like she was comforting me. Harvey became colder too. He stopped copying me on certain emails. He held family-only meetings about company matters, even though I was still the one who had to fix the mistakes afterward. Hayden, who could barely explain a cap rate without notes, started calling me admin in front of contractors. One afternoon, he came into my office and tossed a messy stack of papers on my desk. Can you organize these before tomorrow? He asked. I looked at the papers, then at him. These are investor summaries. Why did you print drafts with wrong numbers? He shrugged. I don't know. That's your thing. My thing.
Yeah, he said.
You know, the details. I smiled. Hayden, the details are the reason investors still answer your calls. His face flushed. You think you're better than everyone because you understand spreadsheets? No, I said. I think I'm tired of pretending you do. He stared at me like I had slapped him. Then he grabbed the papers and stormed out. 10 minutes later, Gregory called. What did you say to Hayden? I leaned back in my chair. The truth. You embarrassed him. He embarrassed himself. You're becoming impossible. No, Gregory. I'm becoming accurate. He was quiet. Then he said something I never forgot. You should remember who gave you this life. I looked around my office. The lease binders. The tax files. The framed photo from our first property closing. The stack of contracts I had negotiated. The lender emails I had written. The empire they thought had fallen from the sky into Gregory's lap. And I said, I remember everything. He hung up. That night, I sent Juliet another batch of documents. She replied 10 minutes later. Do not react to anything they do next. Kelsey found more. We need to meet tomorrow. I stared at that message for a long time.
More.
There was always more. The next day, Juliet and Kelsey sat across from me in a private meeting room downtown. Kelsey had her laptop open, her hair tied back, her expression serious. I traced the payments, she said. It's worse than we thought. She showed me a clean timeline. Lana's condo fees started 8 months earlier. Furniture purchases followed. Then luxury car payments. Then wellness appointments. Then direct transfers. Then a deposit toward another property. My throat tightened. Another property?
Kelsey nodded.
A pre-construction condo. Not under Lana's name directly, but the payment path is connected. Juliet folded her hands. Gregory may be trying to set up assets outside the marital and corporate structure. He's using company money to build a separate life, I said. Yes, Juliet said. But there's another issue. I looked at her. She slid a document toward me. It was a shareholder agreement from years earlier, when I remembered signing after I personally guaranteed a refinancing package when Harvey could not qualify. I scanned the page. Then I stopped. My name, my percentage, my voting rights, my restrictions on unauthorized transfers, my authority under specific default conditions. My breath caught. Juliet watched my face carefully. Joanna, she said, Do you understand what this means? I whispered, I'm still majority voting shareholder in the management company. Yes. But Gregory told me that was temporary. He said they changed it later. They drafted changes, Juliet said. They were never properly executed. You never signed the final transfer. There is no valid record showing you gave up control. Kelsey turned her laptop slightly toward me. And because funds were misused, default clauses may apply. With proper notice, you can restrict Gregory's access pending investigation. I stared at both of them. For years, I had been treated like a decorative wife in a mansion I helped secure, inside a company I helped rescue, surrounded by people who called me lucky. And legally, quietly, in the boring paperwork they never bothered to respect, I was far more powerful than they realized. My eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears this time. Angry ones. Relieved ones. Juliet softened her voice. They underestimated you because they thought your work was invisible. Kelsey added, invisible work still leaves records. I laughed once, but it broke in the middle. Then I covered my face. For the first time in months, I felt the ground under my feet again. What do we do? I asked. Juliet looked at me with the calmest expression I had ever seen. We wait for them to make the next move. I already knew what that move would be. My birthday was coming. I didn't want a party, but Christina insisted. At first, that confused me. Christina had never cared about celebrating me unless there was an audience. Then Gregory suddenly became oddly pleasant. He asked what dress I planned to wear. He told me the party would be good for appearances. He even kissed my forehead one morning like we were still a normal married couple. That was when I knew something was coming. Juliet told me to stay calm. Kelsey told me she would have final numbers ready. And me? I became the perfect wife again. I approved the catering. I confirmed the guest list. I arranged flowers. I made sure the mansion looked flawless. Christina watched me with a smug little smile, probably thinking I had finally accepted my place. Gregory seemed relieved, like my calmness meant I knew nothing. Hayden made jokes about me finally being useful again. Harvey barely spoke to me. And every night, after everyone went to sleep, I sat in my office scanning documents, saving backups, and preparing the quietest storm of my life. The birthday party was on a Saturday evening in early spring, when Toronto was still cold enough for coats, but warm enough for people to pretend winter was over. The mansion looked beautiful. I hate admitting that, but it did. Soft lights, white flowers, a long dining table, champagne glasses, music low enough for expensive conversations, guests in tailored suits and elegant dresses, Christina floating around like the hostess of a life she did not pay for. Harvey standing near the fireplace, laughing too loudly. Hayden showing off to anyone who would listen. Gregory wore a black suit. He looked handsome. That hurt in a strange way. Not because I still wanted him. I think I had already buried that part of myself. But because I remembered the man he used to be, or maybe the man I invented because I needed to believe my sacrifices meant something. He came toward me with 2 glasses of sparkling water. You look beautiful, he said. I took the glass. Thank you. His eyes searched my face. You okay? I almost smiled. Was I okay? My husband was about to humiliate me in the house I helped buy, in front of the family that erased me, beside a pregnant mistress he funded with stolen company money. No, I said honestly. But I'm calm. He frowned. Before he could ask what that meant, Christina clinked a spoon against her glass. Everyone, she said brightly. Can we gather for a birthday toast? People moved toward the dining room. I saw Lana enter 2 minutes later. She wore a soft pink dress under a cream coat, her hand resting on her stomach in that careful way pregnant women sometimes do when they want everyone to notice without saying anything. The room noticed. Whispers started. My chest tightened, but I kept my face still. Gregory walked to her. Not secretly. Not shamefully. Openly. He took her hand. The room shifted. People looked from him to me, then back again. Christina's mouth curved. Harvey looked uncomfortable, but did nothing. Hayden seemed entertained. I stood beside the birthday cake, surrounded by white candles I had not asked for. Gregory cleared his throat. "Joanna," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We've had a complicated marriage for a long time." A few people lowered their glasses. I looked at him. He continued, "I didn't want to do this privately because our life has always been tied to this family, this house, and this company." My fingers tightened around my glass. Lana looked down, pretending to be humble. Gregory reached inside his jacket and pulled out a folder. There it was. White paper. Legal formatting. Divorce papers. On my birthday. In front of everyone. He placed the folder on the table beside the cake. "Happy birthday, Joanna," he said. "Sign these before the cake, so we can stop pretending this marriage still matters." Nobody breathed. For 1 second, the whole mansion was silent. Then Christina spoke softly, but everyone heard her. "It's better this way. Gregory deserves a real family." Lana lowered her eyes and touched her stomach. That little performance almost made me laugh. Almost. Gregory turned slightly toward Lana. "Lana and I are expecting a child," he said. "I know this is difficult, but I hope everyone can be mature."
Mature.
He said mature while handing me divorce papers at my own birthday party. Some guests looked horrified. Others looked thrilled in that quiet way people get when drama happens in expensive rooms. Hayden smirked openly. Harvey stared into his drink. Everyone waited. They wanted tears. They wanted trembling.
They wanted me to beg.
I looked at the divorce papers. Then at Gregory. Then at Lana. Then at Christina. And I smiled. Not a big smile. Not a dramatic one. Just enough to confuse them. Gregory's expression flickered. "Joanna," he said. I set my glass down. "This is your final decision?" He blinked. "Yes." "And you chose to do this here?"
His jaw tightened.
"I thought transparency was best." "Transparency," I repeated.
Christina stepped forward.
"Don't make this ugly. Sign with dignity." I turned to her. "Christina, dignity left the room when your son brought his pregnant mistress to my birthday." A few people gasped. Lana's face flushed. Gregory snapped, "Do not talk to my mother like that." I looked back at him. "There he is," I said softly. "I wondered when you'd defend a woman tonight." His face went red. Hayden muttered, "Wow." I picked up the folder, opened it, and scanned the first page. It was insulting. Not surprising. Just insulting. Gregory wanted the marriage ended quietly. He wanted me to waive claims against certain business assets. He wanted me to move out of the mansion within 30 days. He wanted confidentiality. He wanted no review of corporate finances. He wanted me to keep the car, some personal items, and a settlement that looked generous only if you had no idea what I had built. I closed the folder. "No," I said. Gregory stared. "No."
No.
He gave a tight laugh. "Joanna, this is not a negotiation. That's the first true thing you've said tonight." He looked confused. I reached for my phone.
Christina's smile faded.
"What are you doing?" she asked. I ignored her and called Juliet. She answered on the second ring. "It happened?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Birthday party. Mansion. Divorce papers. Lana is here. Pregnant." Around me, people started whispering. Gregory stepped closer. "Who are you calling?" I held up one finger. Juliet's voice stayed calm. "Are you on speaker?" "Not yet." "Put me on." I tapped speaker and set the phone on the table beside the divorce papers and the untouched birthday cake. Juliet's voice filled the dining room. "Gregory, this is Juliet, counsel for Joanna. Any further communication regarding divorce, corporate assets, the mansion, or Harbor Crown properties will go through my office." Gregory went still. Harvey's head snapped up. Christina whispered, "Counsel?" I looked at Gregory and said, "You heard her." Juliet continued, "Formal notices are being served electronically tonight and by courier Monday morning. Effective immediately. Joanna is exercising her rights under the shareholder agreement of the management company due to documented misuse of corporate funds." The room changed. You could feel it, like the temperature dropped. Gregory's face strained. "What misuse?" he said. I tilted my head. "You want transparency, right?" Lana's hand slipped from her stomach. Kelsey's name appeared on my phone as a message preview. Final report delivered. Restrictions ready. I looked at Gregory's face, and for the first time that night, he looked afraid. Juliet said, "A forensic review has identified unauthorized payments connected to personal housing, vehicle expenses, medical expenses, and other non-business charges. Pending investigation, access restrictions are being initiated on certain corporate accounts." Harvey stepped forward. "This is ridiculous." I looked at him. "Is it?" His mouth opened, then closed. Because Harvey knew enough to understand one terrible thing. Juliet would not say that in front of witnesses unless she could prove it. Gregory grabbed the divorce papers off the table. "You planned this," he said. I laughed quietly. "No, Gregory. You planned this. I documented it." Lana whispered, "Gregory, what is she talking about?" That was when I realized something. He had lied to her too. Maybe he told her the company was his. The mansion was his. The money was his. Maybe he promised her she was stepping into a finished life, polished and secure. Poor Lana. She thought she was replacing the wife. She had no idea she was standing inside evidence. Gregory lowered his voice. "Joanna, turn the phone off." "No. We can discuss this privately." "You gave me divorce papers beside my birthday cake in front of guests," I said. "Private is over." Christina's face twisted. "You ungrateful little—" "Careful," Juliet said through the phone. "There are witnesses present." Christina froze. Hayden, who had been enjoying himself minutes earlier, suddenly looked toward the exit. Then Harvey's phone rang. He looked down. His expression changed. Then Hayden's phone buzzed. Then Gregory's. One by one, the men in that family looked at their screens. Corporate card access suspended. Online banking permissions under review. Emergency board notice issued. Investor notification pending. Gregory stared at his phone like it had betrayed him. I picked up the divorce papers again and slid them back across the table toward him. "You wanted me out of the mansion," I said. "You should have checked who had the keys on paper." Harvey's face went gray. Lana whispered, "Gregory?" But Gregory couldn't answer her, because the empire he thought he owned had just started slipping out of his hands. And for the first time in years, everyone in that mansion was looking at me like they finally understood I had not been the lucky wife. I had been the foundation. The silence after that call was not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that happens right before people realize their old power no longer works. Gregory stood beside the birthday cake with the divorce papers in his hand, but he no longer looked like the confident husband who had planned my humiliation. His face had gone pale, and his eyes kept jumping from me to his phone, then to Lana, then to Harvey. Christina tried to recover first. "This is nonsense," she snapped. "Joanna is emotional. She's always been emotional." I looked at her calmly. "Then you should have no problem letting the document speak." Her mouth tightened. Harvey stepped toward me, lowering his voice like he could still control the room. "Joanna, this is family business." I almost laughed. "No, Harvey. For years, you called it family business when you wanted my free labor. Tonight, it became corporate business." A few guests looked down, pretending not to listen, but everyone was listening. Gregory finally found his voice. "You're making a huge mistake." "No," I said. "My mistake was building your life while letting you convince me I was lucky to stand beside it." Lana touched his arm. "Gregory, what does she mean by corporate money?" He pulled his arm away too fast. That told me everything. He had not told Lana the truth. He had sold her a fantasy. Rich man, powerful family, mansion, company, pregnant. Future. She probably thought I was the bitter wife standing in the way of her happy ending. But the money that paid for her condo, her car, her furniture, and her soft little luxury life had a trail. And that trail led straight back to him. Juliet stayed on the phone while I opened my tablet and sent a prepared file to the large screen in the dining room. It was supposed to show birthday photos later. Instead, the first document appeared, a transaction summary. No dramatic music, no shouting, just dates, amounts, account names, and descriptions. Lana's condo fees. luxury car lease, private furniture purchases, medical appointments, designer store charges, direct transfers. Gregory lunged forward. Turn that off. I stepped back, but Hector moved before Gregory could reach the tablet. Hector had been quiet the whole night. That was his style. He never wasted words. But when he placed himself between Gregory and the table, the room shifted again. I invested in this company, Hector said. I would like to see the rest. Gregory froze. Harvey's face changed from anger to fear. Because family could be bullied. Wives could be dismissed. But investors were different. Investors did not care about Christina's pride or Gregory's image. They cared about money, records, liability, and trust. And trust was bleeding out in front of everyone. Kelsey's summary appeared next.
Clean.
Professional. Impossible to twist. She had traced the unauthorized payments and separated them from legitimate business expenses. She had also flagged strange approvals, hidden reimbursements, and attempts to disguise personal charges under consulting categories. I did not need to explain much. That was the beauty of real evidence. It did not beg to be believed. It stood there. Lana backed away from Gregory slowly. You told me the condo was yours, she whispered. Gregory turned toward her. Not now. You told me you were separated. Christina snapped. Lana, this is not the time. Lana looked at Christina, and for the first time, I saw panic in her face too. Because she finally understood she had not been brought into a stable life. She had been brought into a collapsing lie. I picked up the divorce papers again. Gregory, these are not being signed tonight. Not without full financial disclosure. Not without corporate review. Not without the mansion, the company, and every hidden payment being examined. He looked like he wanted to throw the folder. Instead, he hissed, You'll regret humiliating me. I leaned closer and said quietly, You confused exposure with humiliation. I didn't create what you did. I only stopped hiding it for you. That night, I did not sleep in our bedroom. I went to the guest suite at the far end of the house, locked the door, and sat on the bed while my phone exploded. Messages from guests. Messages from vendors. Messages from people who suddenly remembered how much work I had done for Harbor Crown Properties. But the only message that made me cry came from my dad. Joanna, your mom and I are proud of you. Come home if you need to. You are still our daughter before you are anyone's wife. I stared at that sentence until my tears finally fell. Not because I felt weak. Because for too long, I had forgotten that before I became Gregory's wife, Christina's target, Harvey's unpaid fixer, and the invisible engine behind a company, I was somebody's daughter. I was loved before I was useful. The next morning, Gregory was gone. So was Lana. Christina and Harvey were still in the mansion, but the house felt different. The staff moved quietly. The air felt tense. No one knew who was in charge anymore. I did. That was the difference. Juliet arrived at 9 with printed notices. Kelsey came with a laptop and backup drives. Hector arrived 30 minutes later, wearing a dark coat and the expression of a man who had already decided he would not be lied to again. We met in the same dining room where Gregory had tried to destroy me. Juliet placed documents on the table. Joanna is exercising temporary control provisions under the shareholder agreement while misuse of funds is investigated, she said. Harvey slammed his hand on the table. This company has my name in its history. Juliet did not blink. History does not override signed agreements. Christina glared at me. You plan to steal from us. I looked at her for a long second. Christina, I saved this company when lenders wouldn't return Harvey's calls. I handled leases when Hayden couldn't remember tenant names. I negotiated investor terms while Gregory took credit. I paid attention to every number while all of you treated me like decoration. My voice shook a little, but I did not stop. I'm not stealing anything. I'm taking back what my work built. Hayden, who had been silent near the window, muttered, You can't run the company alone. I turned to him. I've been running it for years. No one answered. Because everyone in that room knew it was true. Let me ask you something here. When a woman finally stops begging to be respected and simply proves her value, why do people call her cruel? I think it's because they were comfortable when she was quiet. The moment she becomes clear, They call it revenge. The weeks after that were ugly. Gregory tried everything. First, he tried charm. He sent me long messages saying we should slow down and think about the family. He said he had been confused, pressured, lonely. He said Lana had made him feel seen. I almost replied, I know the feeling. But I didn't. Then he tried anger. He accused me of turning investors against him. He said I had poisoned everyone. He said no judge would believe I deserved control of a company with his family name attached to it. Juliet told me not to respond emotionally.
So I didn't.
Then he tried pity. He left me a voicemail at midnight. Joanna, come on. You know I worked hard too.
Don't destroy me.
I made mistakes, but you're acting like I'm some criminal. I listened once.
Then I saved it for Juliet.
Kelsey kept working through the records, and every few days, the picture became clearer. Gregory had not just paid for Lana. He had moved money to support a whole separate future. The Yorkville condo. The car. A planned investment unit. Personal trips disguised as client meetings. Gifts disguised as marketing expenses. And worse, Hayden had helped hide some of it. Not because he was smart. Because he was obedient. Gregory told him to approve certain invoices, and Hayden did. Harvey ignored warning signs because he did not want to admit his golden son was reckless. Christina blamed me because blaming me was easier than seeing the truth about her family. Meanwhile, Lana's luxury life fell apart fast. The condo payment stopped. The car lease became a problem. The boutique accounts went unpaid. She called Gregory constantly. I knew because Gregory called me constantly afterward, demanding access to funds. One afternoon, Lana came to the mansion. I was in the home office reviewing lease renewals when the doorbell rang. A staff member told me she was outside. For a second, I considered refusing. Then I said, let her in. Lana walked in looking nothing like the woman from my birthday party. No perfect cream coat. No confident smile. Just a tired pregnant woman with swollen eyes and a designer bag that suddenly looked too heavy for her. She stood in my office doorway. I didn't know, she said. I looked at her carefully. What didn't you know? That he was using company money. That you weren't separated. That you built. She looked around the office. All of this. I wanted to hate her completely.
Part of me did.
But another part of me saw a woman who had believed the version of Gregory he performed when he wanted something. That did not make her innocent, but it made her less powerful than she had looked. Lana, I said, you knew he was married. She lowered her head. Yes. That part is enough. She cried quietly. I'm not asking you to forgive me.
Good, I said.
Because I'm not there. She nodded, wiping her face. He told me after the divorce, the mansion would be ours. I felt something cold pass through me. There it is. He said you would leave quietly because you had no real claim. I smiled sadly. He always mistook my patience for weakness. Lana looked at me with fear in her eyes. What happens now? For me? I said. I rebuild in public what I already built in silence. And for him? I looked down at the stack of documents on my desk. That depends on how much more he lies. The formal confrontation happened 3 weeks later in a downtown Toronto boardroom. Not a courtroom yet. Not some dramatic movie scene. A boardroom with glass walls, cold water bottles, printed folders, and people wearing serious faces. Somehow, that made it scarier. Juliet sat beside me. Kelsey sat on my other side with her final report. Hector attended as an investor representative. Harvey, Christina, Hayden, and Gregory came in together, but they no longer looked united. Gregory looked tired and furious. Harvey looked older. Hayden looked nervous. Christina looked like she wanted to slap me but knew too many people were watching. Lana was not there. That told me enough. Juliet began calmly. Today's meeting concerns corporate governance, unauthorized expenditures, investor disclosure, and temporary removal of signing authority. Gregory interrupted. This is a personal divorce issue. Kelsey opened her folder. No, it is not. Her voice was quiet, but the room listened. She walked them through everything. The hidden payments, the false categories, the personal expenses, the approvals. The lack of proper corporate purpose. Every number had a date. Every date had a source. Every source had a backup. Gregory tried to deny the first page, then explain the second, then minimize the third. By the fourth, he stopped speaking. Hayden was sweating. Harvey kept rubbing his forehead. Christina stared at the table, finally silent. Then Juliet placed the shareholder documents in front of them. This confirms Joanna's voting control under the current valid agreement, she said. There is no properly executed transfer removing her authority. Harvey whispered. Gregory said it was handled. I looked at Gregory. So, did you lie to them too? Or did they simply not care enough to check? Gregory's jaw tightened. Hector leaned forward. I want to be very clear, he said. My continued investment depends on Joanna remaining in operational control. If Gregory or Hayden retains access, I withdraw support. That was the final blow. Harvey turned toward Hector. You can't be serious. I am completely serious, Hector said. The only reason this company has performed is sitting across from you. No one defended Gregory. Not even Christina. I thought that would feel satisfying, and it did in a way. But it also felt sad. Because for years, all I wanted was for them to admit the truth without being forced. Now the truth was there, but only because the damage had become too expensive to ignore. Juliet slid the final resolution forward. Gregory's access would be suspended. Hayden's financial authority removed pending review. Harvey would step back from active control. Christina would have no operational involvement. I would take full management authority while the review continued. Gregory stared at the paper. You're taking everything. I shook my head.
No.
I'm taking responsibility. That probably looks like theft to you because you never understood the difference. His eyes filled with rage. You think people will respect you after this? I looked around the room. At this point, Gregory, I respect myself. That matters more. He grabbed a pen and signed only after Harvey told him to. Not because he had become humble, because he had run out of room. After that, the empire changed quickly. Not overnight. Real life is not that clean. There were lawyers, accountants, investor calls, staff meetings, uncomfortable audits, and late nights where I sat alone in the office wondering how I had survived so long on so little kindness. But slowly, the company became mine in the way it should have been recognized years earlier. Not just legally.
Culturally.
Staff came directly to me. Investors called me first. Contractors stopped asking whether Gregory needed to approve decisions. Tenants who had known me for years said, Honestly, Joanna, we always dealt with you anyway. That sentence made me laugh the first time I heard it. Because yes, they had. Gregory moved out of the mansion after the temporary order became formal. He took clothes, watches, and his wounded pride. Lana did not move in anywhere with him. From what I heard, she went to stay with a relative outside the city. I never contacted her again. Whatever happened between them after that was no longer my burden. Christina tried to stay in the mansion at first. She said it was family property. Juliet handled that with one letter. 2 days later, Christina packed her things in silence. Before she left, she stood in the foyer under the chandelier she had chosen with my money and said, You must be very proud. I looked at her. No, I said. I'm very tired. That seemed to hit her harder than anger would have. Harvey avoided my eyes as he left. Hayden tried to apologize, but it came out weak. I didn't know it would go this far, he said. I replied, That's because you never paid attention unless something affected you. He had no answer. The mansion felt enormous after they were gone. For the first week, I hated the silence. Every room reminded me of something. Christina's insults in the dining room. Gregory's lies in the bedroom. Harvey's arrogance in the office. Hayden's laughter in the hallway. Then, slowly, I began changing things. I removed the giant family portrait in the main hall. I turned Gregory's cigar room into a small library. I replaced the dining chairs because I never wanted to sit at that table and remember my birthday humiliation the same way again. I invited my parents over for dinner. My mom cried when she walked in, not because the house was beautiful, but because she saw how tired I was. My dad hugged me in the foyer and whispered, Now can you sleep peacefully inside it? I cried into his coat. Yes, I said. I think I can start. Months passed. Harbor Crown Properties became Harbor North Living. I changed the name because I was done carrying a crown that had been used to press me down. We focused on rental communities, fair leases, cleaner reporting, and realistic investor promises. Nothing flashy. Nothing built on lies. Kelsey stayed as an external financial advisor. Juliet became the person I called before making major decisions. Hector stayed invested. And me? I learned how to walk into rooms without shrinking. I learned that being calm did not mean being passive. I learned that love without respect becomes a cage with expensive furniture. On my next birthday, I did not throw a party at the mansion. I had dinner with my parents, Juliet, Kelsey, and a few staff members who had become real friends. No speeches. No fake smiles. No mistress at the door. No divorce papers beside the cake. Just food, laughter, and peace. Before I blew out the candle, my mom asked, "Did you make a wish?" I looked around the table, at the people who saw me, at the home that finally felt like mine, at the quiet strength I had earned through every insult, every lie, and every night I almost gave up. Then I smiled. "No," I said. "I think I'm already living inside the answer." And this time, when everyone clapped, I did not feel like the lucky wife. I felt like Joanna, the daughter who remembered her worth, the woman who stopped begging for a seat, and the builder of an empire no one could erase again. Now tell me honestly, if you were Joanna, would you ever forgive Gregory, or would you close that door forever? Drop your answer in the comments, because I know people will be divided on this one. Some believe forgiveness frees you, while others believe distance is the real healing. From everything I went through, I learned that people may ignore your effort when it is quiet, but they cannot erase the truth forever. Never let anyone convince you that the life you built only belongs to the person who took credit for it. If you've ever been underestimated by people who benefited from your hard work, share your story in the comments below. And if this story made you feel something, share it with a friend, like the video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.